Snowballs?
Yeah.
Snowballs? Where's the Twinkies?
You realize what you've done to my wife?
I am not looking for trouble. I am but a humble gato in search of his next meal. Perhaps you gentlemen can help me find a single score.
Go on, boys, chop his head off. Right, silly little bleeder. One rabbit stew coming right up. Jesus Christ!
Nice
The violence.
for Easter.
Exactly.
We're
There you
getting
go.
a jump on
There
next
you go.
year's
There
Easter
was a
special.
connection.
I'm Mark.
I'm Tom.
And we are the
Cinemaniacs.
Cinemaniacs. Back from a week off.
Yes, so hold your breath. We shouldn't hold our breath. Or take
I just looked at the
one
list.
big breath and then go into it.
There's so many, and all of them are worthy of probably 20 minutes apiece. So we'll give
For various reasons.
for various reasons.
Yes.
Would you care to begin?
I'll
sir?
be happy to. So to start things off, it's a dark time for Chris Hemsworth and Jeff Bridges and Dakota Johnson and John Hamm and all sorts of folks who show up. They've all got something strange about their past, and the bellhop might be able to help them out or not, because they're having some bad times at the El Royale.
Hi.
So fortunately, Jeff Bridges kept the marbles that he put in his mouth for True Grit.
Well,
and
you know what's interesting about this? He doesn't start off talking that way in this movie. And I thought that that's how he talks now, because he always does that stuff, the marble mouth thing. And when you first meet his character in this film, he doesn't talk that way. And I'm like, oh, so that isn't like an affliction he has, it's an affection that he has. And by the end of the movie, he does.
Right.
After he's been popped in the puss a couple times, he starts talking that way. So this is a film by Drew Goddard, who I was just looking up as we were watching the clip, who directed Cabin in the Woods, which is a movie a lot of people love, but I didn't. I see a lot of similarities between the two films.
Yeah, after you mentioned
in that,
it.
I don't want to give too much away because there are surprises in this film, which I appreciated. It is, and the trailer sort of leads you to that. These strangers show up at this desolate location, and it's not what it seems to be, and nobody is who they seem to be, and things get very strange.
You know something that they play up that I don't figure out now was this thing is right on the border of Nevada and California.
Yes.
They make such a big deal about it, but it seems to have no thematic point.
It seems just
That's
like
odd.
a writing quirk
Right.
more than anything else. So the film is clearly produced by someone or people who like Tarantino,
Yep.
because it is all non-linear and everybody's quirky and there's a lot of extreme violence and bloodshed and old classic tunes, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
I love the production
Very well
design.
made.
I want to visit this place. It's so gorgeous. It's set in 1969, but it felt earlier than that, and I think it's because the hotel was frozen in time from
Right.
about 10 years or so earlier, or a few years earlier than that. A good cast. Some people you haven't heard before. I had to write her name down. Cynthia Erivo, who plays the soul singer in this film, who I've never seen before.
What a voice she has.
She does a lot of singing, which seemed to be live on set singing. Dakota Johnson, soon to be in the upcoming Suspiria remake, and a lot of other people. This movie goes in very strange places that I did not expect. Generally, I like that. I like movies that surprise me, because so few do. This did, but after a while, I got tired of it.
Okay.
It felt unfocused to me after a while, because you see everybody sort of checks in, and then you see like room 5, and you see sort of part of their story, and then it goes back in room 2. So it's moving around in time, and then suddenly there'll be a flashback later in somebody else's story, and you learn about Dakota Johnson's sister in such a way that it's very strange, and then Chris Hemsworth shows up, and it becomes this whole other thing, and I'm just like, what is this at this point?
Right.
And it seemed to really get off on the violence and the nastiness and the crudity after a while, which felt Tarantino to me. It felt very, kind of junior high boy. We're going to beat somebody up, and they're going to have guns, and they're going to cuss, and all this. So ultimately, I didn't like it, I think, but I think a lot of people might. It's got a good vibe to it, and it's weird. This is a movie I think that will probably be forgotten in a few years, just because it's so weird. And I don't know who you sell this to, because mainstream audience isn't really going to dig this kind of something that's as salacious and unpleasant as this.
Right.
Maybe the edgy audience will, but it doesn't seem like it's edgy enough for that. So I had a bad time at the El Royale.
No, I'm sorry about that. Ultimately, I kind of did as well. I thought the first 45 minutes or so were just fascinating.
It's very intriguing.
Yeah, and very well made. And there are moments, maybe like 5-10 minutes with no dialogue, and I just found it gripping. And then as we're learning more about all of these characters, you said the F word, flashback, which I find is a dramatic, easy thing to do. Oh, I forgot, or it just doesn't work because, once again, I'll do my quick story screenwriting session here. For flashbacks, it gives the audience information, but it cannot possibly change the character at that moment because it already happened. So for me, it's a cheap way to do a story. As we start getting into those, and particularly as Chris Hemsworth finally shows up, that's where I just thought, as you say, it lost focus. It got really kind of boring for me, strangely enough. I found some of the characters fascinating, loved some of the performances. But yeah, ultimately, Bad Times at the El Royale, I think it might be another interesting one on video, but I wasn't too crazy about it either.
And despite all of the negative things I say and feel about the film, I feel like each one of those person's stories could be an interesting film or an interesting short film.
Sure.
And you could make a prequel, much as I loathe prequels, a prequel to this film because the setup about this place is so interesting and you're seeing it sort of at the tail end of its life.
Right.
That you could have a whole lot more stories in this. This could be like a straight-to-video series.
Now, relative to our next film, I understand that you got there when nobody else was in there. So you were actually...
It's actually true.
Okay.
I was the first person in the theater. I bought some chicken tenders, and I was sitting in a dark theater in Pennsylvania by myself eating chicken tenders. And I'm like, this is either the pinnacle of life or this is a low point. I'm not really sure which. Then the movie started, and I can tell you pretty clearly. So Ryan Gosling stars as an American, even though he's Canadian, who was the person who was primero machismo on the nugget out there. It's the story of Neil Armstrong and, on the moon, the first man.
If you like popcorn, you'll really like ours. We start with the best and make it better.
Another potential bad time. Maybe not in the but way the hell someplace else.
So as I just said to you, I didn't know much about Neil Armstrong. I knew that he was the first human being on the moon, first U.S. man on the moon, and that he said the couple lines. The line he said when they landed and the line he said when he set foot on the moon. Other than that, I didn't know anything. So going into this, I'm like, educate me. Tell me all about Neil Armstrong. And what I got was a series of twitchy close-ups, almost nothing but close-ups, to the extent where I'm watching the movie and in my head I'm going close-up, watch it close-up, close-up, medium, close-up. Back up. And they're shaky and they're half out of focus. I'm like, this is professional filmmaking. Now, a lot of people aren't bothered by apparently not being able to see what you paid for, but it drives me crazy. So I had a hard time focusing on the movie because I'm like, where is anybody? Where is anybody in relation to anything else? And then they use the shaky thing when a lot of times when you're seeing Armstrong doing test piloting or he's in a space capsule, it really traces him being, all the lead up to being an astronaut and then getting selected for the moon mission. And there are times where the capsule is shaking a lot. And okay, the camera's going to shake a lot. But at the same time, I don't need to see the camera shake a lot to know that the guys in the chairs are shaking. It just drives me crazy. So the filmmaking style I thought was horrible. And it really made me it pushed me away from the film.
Okay. Yep.
In addition to that, and apparently this is historically accurate, so I can't really criticize the movie for this, but Neil Armstrong is portrayed as a very emotionless, standoffish, stoic, barely ever says anything
like a
guy.
real bastard.
I was just thinking like a zombie.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I don't care about this guy. He never says anything. He maybe has 10 minutes of dialogue in the 2.5-hour movie. Maybe. But nobody else has a lot of dialogue either. His wife is very
The film seems to be about how upset he is about his daughter dying so young, but then he's just he neglects his kid and he neglects his wife. I thought he came off really badly. His wife doesn't come off well.
Apparently, I did a little History versus Hollywood website look up after this. Apparently, that is pretty accurate. Apparently, the whole film in general is pretty accurate. So that's cool, but I just didn't find it compelling at all. I felt it was extremely bland. You don't get a lot of setup as to who anybody is or what anybody's doing, and you don't fabulously see where anything is. So, some of the space capsule stuff was interesting because you got enough of a sense of, wow, things are not going well, and these guys have to figure out on the fly how to not drift off into space. There's a scene at the beginning where he's in a space capsule, and you can see that you intuit that he is starting to float off into space, and you're just like, wow, that's a bad way to go. So you have to respect the people who were bold enough to be willing to sacrifice
But
their lives
there's another
to do
movie
this
that
stuff.
did that much better.
And that is the thing, is that I'm watching this and I'm like, boy, I wish I was watching the right stuff.
Boy, I
because
was
that
watching Apollo 13.
They're so much better in terms of how they convey things and the emotion. You get to feel like you know these people, and in this movie, you really feel like you don't. So I did not like First Man.
You really feel like you don't, and what I knew about Armstrong and his wife in particular, I didn't like them. It was just such a contentious relationship, and ultimately I was looking for, well, I get that, but what's the point? I didn't know when I left this film what the point was. And if it was, boy, it was tough to get out into space. We already had 2 other movies that showed it much better. Yeah, I was ultimately, there's not much more to really say about. Now, there is some controversy about the fact that we didn't see him plant the flag.
We didn't see him zip up
and
his fly either. That is so stupid.
Well, and I got to thinking about it. I wasn't intentionally viewing it with that in mind, but in rethinking it, it wasn't really about the mission. It was about him and Armstrong and his family. And so I didn't miss that. I don't think I'm making excuses or anything like that. I thought dramatically I didn't miss, because once we got to the moon, we saw 1 or 2 things happen and then we're gone.
Right.
And so I didn't miss that a whole lot. So I wouldn't criticize the film for that reason. I'd criticize it for all the reasons you mentioned and more.
We never saw anybody set up a tripod in the film either, funny enough.
Speaking of things, things from outer space, kind of a theme here maybe, because while Neil went out and grabbed the moon for us, other things, bad things might be coming from space. If you're Tom Hardy and you happen to be a reporter/photographer, you don't want to get this black goose all over you, because it may well turn out to be Venom.
Freshman Center now. Enjoy a delicious snack and ice-cold Coca-Cola.
La-di-da.
So you hate to be extreme about anything, but is this the worst Marvel movie?
No.
What is the worst Marvel movie? Because when I walked out of the theater, I was hard-pressed to think of one I didn't like.
It's maybe not fair because it's not a current one, but the original Daredevil. Maybe,
Oh,
or Elektra,
well.
or something like that.
Okay,
But
maybe it's
if
not
you're
the
talking
worst
current
Marvel
ones,
movie.
I don't know.
I really didn't like this at all.
Yeah.
If I had seen that trailer and it didn't look good to me, but trailers are deceiving.
Now, are you
sometimes.
a Spider-Man fan or familiar with it?
I appreciate Spider-Man.
Okay.
When I read the comic, I was reading Marvel Tales. So in the
Right,
80s,
exactly,
I was
yeah.
reading the 60s and 70s Spider-Man.
Exactly, yeah.
So I knew what Venom was, and it was in the 3rd of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. There was that in there. But the effects seemed very cheesy.
Yeah.
Tom Hardy, who I generally like, was just all twitchy and mumbly and kind of whiny as his character. It's like he was like having the DTs or something. The Venom character was just over-the-top cheesy to me, and the voice, which I believe was Hardy speaking in his actual British accent, was kind of hard to hear.
Right.
It was kind of Bane all over again, and I didn't care. It just seemed like it was made for like 14. Well, it probably was made for 14-year-old boys, but I didn't like it. It wasn't funny when it was trying to be. All the lines that were supposed to be cheesy, supposed to be hip and quirky, were not funny.
And just fell flat.
I
Really
just
flat.
didn't like Venom at all.
Yeah, I agree completely. I thought the effects were pretty poor. I like Hardy, and so I enjoyed some of his stuff. But as a big Spider-Man fan, my understanding is that Marvel sold off the rights to whatever company this was that produced it, I forget who, to Venom, but not any joining rights to Spider-Man or anything really in the Marvel world, which was fine. And I thought they did a respectable job of just making it about Venom, just its own story. But I was looking for that, how cool it would have been to see Spider-Man make a cameo or something like that. So once I got used to that, I just found it, primarily what struck me was the effects were cheesy. Everything you said, the effects were cheesy, the dialogue was weak, you're looking for the kitschy line, it just didn't work, it fell flat. But in particular, my understanding was that they either shot or planned to make this rated R, which might have been interesting to make it super gritty.
It has
but
that
then,
feel.
Yeah, then they cut it down, and I think it's too scary for little kids. I'm not going to bring an 8-year-old to this.
There's a lot of profanity in it.
Right, there's that as well. So I just didn't think ultimately the people really knew what they were doing or who their market really was. I wasn't crazy about Venom at all.
Speaking of films featuring popular pop songstresses,
Okay.
up next we have the 4th take on a well-known Hollywood tale about a young woman who meets up with an older gentleman of entertainment value, and you find out that through their mutual talents, together and separately, that a star is born.
Hot dogs the way you like them.
Sorry, talking about our lives.
So you have the just talking about what we're going to watch next weekend. The Janet Gaynor version of this from the 30s, I think, or 40s.
Excuse
the
me.
Judy Garland version from the
I'd forgotten
50s.
about the Janet Gaynor, yeah,
And the
strangely
first
enough.
two are young actresses, older actor. I think the Oscars is one of the big scenes in the film.
Right.
And then you had the 1976 Streisand Chris Christopherson version, which was set in the music industry.
Right.
And this, I haven't seen that version. I've only seen clips. This feels like it is patterned after
Yeah.
that. And in the credits, it actually credits the screenplays for the other versions. So I'm really excited now to see the other versions of this movie, to see how similar this is or isn't to them. I know structurally it is, but
Structurally, they are, yeah, absolutely.
this was really good.
It's quite a surprise,
Like,
kind of. I mean,
I don't care about the Oscars so much, but this was one when it was over, I'm like, so all categories, check, yes. Bradley Cooper directed it, and he plays the elder
so scary
rock
when
singer.
an actor thinks, "Oh, I know how to direct." So I was worried about that, but it was fine. It was
I
okay.
find a lot of actors who direct are very actory.
Yeah.
They want to feel the moment. And they make movies that I find annoying and boring, but not always. Ben Affleck's quite good. So Cooper, I don't want to say unrecognizable, but when he first shows up, if you weren't deeply familiar with him, and if you took the names off the credits, you might not know it was him because it doesn't sound like him. It barely looks
Right.
like him. And he like is this guy, this kind of grizzled. He's not a country singer, rock singer, sort of. Chris Christopher
Right.
is he kind of singer, and he's really good. And I believe he does his own singing in it. And
so.
the music in this movie is good. They're like legitimately good songs. My toe was a tapping under the end credits of this film, and he meets Lady Gaga, who's just a young caterer, waiter person who moonlights as a singer once in a while at a drag club, and they happen to connect up, and sort of he falls for her talent first, I think, and then her.
Yeah.
So it's a romance, and it's a person who's on the ascending stardom path and the person who's sort of plateaued, if not on the descending path, who has personal problems. And it is like an incredibly solid and moving drama. The music is really good. The musical sequences are good. Everybody in it is good. Andrew Dice Clay is in this movie. I didn't recognize him at first because he wasn't wearing the leather jacket and smoking the cigarette about in the back of his head. But like he's really good. I mean, and everybody in it is the character they're playing. It's not like Lady Gaga, who people think of as this crazy, wacky
Right, that's
pop
exactly what I
songstress.
think when you say
She's a real person in this movie.
She
and
was
I feel like
terrific.
I'm seeing more of the real person that she is, even though she's playing a role in this, than you do in the music videos. And the Dice Man isn't the Dice Man.
Right.
Sam Elliott is more or less Sam Elliott, but he's great too.
he's always good. Yep.
This movie was so good, and it had I saw it the opening Saturday that it opened, and it was a packed crowd of middle-aged to young people to old people at a matinee. So I would highly recommend this version of A Star Is Born. This is really, really good.
Next week, I'm just going to stay home because you and I are pretty much like right on path, at least thus far. Yeah, everything that you said, but I would play up even more. When you say, I didn't know if it was Gaga or Gaga.
It's
I always say
Gaga,
Gaga,
but I make it sound continental.
You're being high class. When you say Lady Gaga, I think of the stupid, weird outfits and everything like that. And I never listened to her music beforehand. And I was bowled over by, obviously, what a great voice she had. But she's a good actress. And so that's really what I took away from this. I figured Elliot's going to be good. I like Bradley Cooper. A little worried about his direction, but I thought it was perfectly fine. Yeah, I was completely surprised at this film as well and thought it was really, really fine.
It reminded me at times of Almost Famous, which is a favorite movie of mine.
Right.
In that you're on tour, you're backstage, you're on
Character-driven,
stage, and it felt really authentic, like you're there with these people.
Right.
So I hope this does really, really well. I think it has done really well.
Yeah.
But this and Venom opened the same weekend, and Venom did way better than this. And I'm just like, so people are stupid, right?
Yeah,
People are
right.
just
Come
stupid.
on, folks. We're playing to the wrong
So
one.
that's all we're going to discuss in theaters right now. Now we move on to that which is available on the home video format, service, choice, platform.
I thought it was going to be
thing.
brief, but no.
No, there's a lot.
Home video format of your choice. I like that.
So the home video format of your choice. First,
The Rock is back. This is the monthly version, iteration of The Rock, I believe. And Dwayne Johnson, we'll call him, because is he trying to get away from that? I don't know. But he plays, can you buy this? He plays a security agent. It's not as bad as Harrison Ford playing a computer specialist in whatever, I forget the name of the film ages ago. But I'll bring that up later on. So The Rock plays a security specialist who's there to help out an Asian businessman who's got loads and loads of money and is going to open the greatest building you've ever seen. Unfortunately, there are some bad guy terrorists who have different plans. Fires break out, and the Rock's family runs into trouble when they're all together in a skyscraper.
Car wash, make it look like new. Watch it in the car wash that lets you see right through.
And sadly, that's the moment he dies in the film.
Yes.
So,
It's a character leap for the actor, so.
it's Towering Inferno. It's Die Hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Die Hard.
Yeah.
Die Hard.
Absolutely nothing new in this movie, but
I always said somebody really should compile a book or a list or a website for every film that has been a Jaws ripoff.
Okay.
Because you had Jaws with dogs, you had Jaws with a bear, you had Jaws,
Yep.
and then you have a lot of shark movies that are basically just Jaws ripoffs. You could do the same with Die Hard. Die Hard has been made in some form once every couple years since 1988.
but it never needs to go back, and it still holds up
and they
so
never
well.
make them better.
Right.
So, as you say, that you set out the plot pretty well. So, Mr. Johnson is a veteran, a SWAT, not a military. He's like a SWAT team.
I'd forgotten that, and that was
So
pretty effective.
He's partially legless. He's got the
Yes.
artificial below the half a leg, fake half a leg, and there is a fight scene in which he utilizes
Yes,
that, where he's hopping around on one foot. And I thought that was kind of great. So for you who are perhaps a disabled veteran or service person and feel like you don't see enough movies with action heroes hanging off a giant building with an artificial leg, here's your movie. And it was kind of cool. It does show that people who have that deficiency, if you want to call it that issue, can
Right.
still live very productive lives and save families and buildings that are on
Exactly.
fire. I like him. I
do too.
Dwayne Johnson. He's a super nice seeming guy. He's very likable, but I think he makes 95% bad movies, and that might be giving him about 3% credit. So this is another one. It's very watchable, I thought. It's entertaining. It's dumb. It breezes right by. It's got crazy action and CG, jumping through CG threats, and the ending on how he defeats the bad guys I just remembered, and it's really ridiculous,
Yep.
involving science fiction technology. But if you like The Rock and you like big dumb action movies, this is one of them. I didn't think much of Skyscraper, but I didn't ultimately hate it. It just reminded me of other movies I would rather watch again that were better that came before it.
Once again, we're right on par. I think I disliked it even a little bit more than you did, and I like The Rock. I'll pretty much go see anything he's in, but the last few movies he's been in, I haven't liked a whole lot. I think they play too much on his persona, and maybe he's milking too much the audience's affection for him. I thought Neve Campbell was very good.
Nice to see her
as
again,
his wife. Yeah, she hasn't been in a whole lot. And she had some action scenes that were kind of fun, but the whole inner working of the family in peril, and there was just nothing new with this one, and I didn't find the effects all that great. So yeah, I mean, go watch Towering Inferno, which I still think holds up. Much more character driven. I've always enjoyed it. The Owen Allen stuff, maybe with the exception of Earthquake. I thought Earthquake was when really struggling. But yeah, Towering Inferno and Die Hard will always hold up well. Skyscraper for me, I'm not going to be thinking about this much after our taping today.
How old do you, not to cast aspersion upon anything, how old do you think you were when you saw Towering Inferno?
I'm sure I saw it when it came out, so I was probably, was that 72? I was 10.
Yeah. So you weren't in junior high yet?
No.
Okay, damn. That would have been a great
It
transition.
would have worked
Had he
well.
been in 7th grade, that would have been perfect. So when we actually do this to tape for the broadcast,
That'll
just
work,
make
okay.
sure you say it.
There we go.
So we have a film here, a coming of age drama, a light drama, not crazy heavy, but a drama nonetheless, about a young girl who is very at that awkward stage, moving from one grade to another, ready to get into high school, and is trying to just find her way in the world and survive 8th grade.
Every cup tastes good as fresh perked.
Because it is fresh perked.
Oh, I like it better.
So an indie film. So this didn't play terribly widely in theaters. I saw it at the Alamo.
But it got a lot of talk. A lot of
It
people
did.
talking about it.
And actually, no, I'm sorry, it did. It played in, maybe it actually played in both theaters.
Played
in
at the
Keene.
Colonial, I believe.
I thought this was really good. It felt very realistic. Not having ever been an 8th grade girl, I can't begin to know those outrageous slings and arrows of outrageous fortune they have to deal with. But there are many elements that rung true from my youthful experience in this film. And a lot of it revolves around the modern social media and online and all that, and how that even adds more pressure and more bullying and all that stuff. It's just a really sweet movie that I feel like kids who are that age or approaching that age and parents could watch together. There's only really one sequence that I think might be construed as objectionable, but I think it is a very, hate the phrase, teachable moment on something to try to avoid.
Right.
but it just felt really real, and it was very funny and sweet, and I don't want to give it away. It had a really nice kind of uplifting ending that people could learn from as well. So I really, really liked 8th Grade. I think it's the kind of thing a lot of people won't be drawn to because it doesn't look like a typical Hollywood movie.
Right.
It doesn't star people they know, but I think it's far more rewarding than most of the films that fit that category.
I think it looks too much like a message movie, not necessarily a feel-good movie, although I think ultimately it is. But what I was struck with was how believable everybody was. It felt, not that it felt like a doc, but I really felt like these people existed someplace. I think we'll probably see a nod for her for supporting actress, or if not lead, but they tend not to give lead actresses to the younger folks. But yeah, I thought 8th Grade was really good. Not necessarily one I would have, and this is one of the things that I like about the show is that it forces us to go out and see pretty much everything.
much.
I probably wouldn't have gone to this of my own volition. Probably would have watched it on video. But now that it's out on video, I think everybody has that opportunity.
And I saw another film in the theater that I don't believe is on demand or on video yet called Assassination Nation, which in many ways is a good companion piece to this. Not for the same audience necessarily,
Right.
but it gets into that whole theme of how social outcasts can be incredibly hindered in their progress by social media and online bullying and mob mentality and all that. So, so Assassination Nation is sort of like the very, very dark connecting film with 8th Grade.
Yeah. Well, if you've been the victim of an attempted assassination or anything like that, or bullying, and you've got some problems in futuristic L.A., you could go to a certain place that's run by Jodie Foster and Dave Bautista. They'll try to help you out, but you got to kind of keep it underground because the place where all the criminals go when they need some help is the Hotel Artemis.
Because they taste delicious and give you vitamins and protein, too.
So ultimately, it's kind of been an off and on week, but I thought this was fun. I enjoyed it. I love Jodie, and I love futuristic setting kinds of things, and I thought this was shot really well. I had a little problem with how old the film made Foster's character, and as great an actress as she is, she doesn't move like I think she should look. So that bothered me. But once I got used to it, I kind of sat back and said, okay, I'm just going to have fun with this, and I thought it was loads of fun.
I saw this in the theater, didn't know anything about it at all, and it was not a very wide release, I don't think. And I really liked it because it was a total surprise for me. Now, they keep talking about the owner of this hotel for criminals who you have to pay a membership to get in, and he might be coming, and oh boy, don't make him mad. And he shows up, and it's a character I don't know if he was in the credits. No. So I was like, it's of course the trailer gives that away, but I thought that was a huge surprise that this guy was in this movie and where that whole story went. I had a blast with this. I thought the action was really good. I thought Sofia Boutella was really good as an ass kicker in it. So I would, again, for this goofy little action movie, I'd kind of highly recommend this because I think most people are not going to watch it.
Right.
And it was one of the bigger surprises I had of the last year. Up next, is it my turn?
It's your turn.
Well, heck. We have a sequel to a very gritty thriller starring Emily Blunt from a year or three ago. Also, it starred Benicio del Toro, who now is the lead in this film. It is about a man who takes on a personal vendetta and works with the military and or U.S. authorities to take on the Mexican drug cartels in, what's it called? Oh yeah, Sicario, Day of the Soldado.
Every cup tastes good as fresh perked.
Because it is fresh perked.
Oh, I like it better.
Grim.
Yep.
Not
Like the
for
first one quite a bit.
Yes.
Although it's one of those that, how can you say you liked it because it is so unbelievably grim? This one almost outdoes the first.
I mean, it's drug cartel violence. It's real world evil and awfulness brought to your home viewing screen. So Del Toro is back, and he's a grim mofo.
And he's always terrific.
And he's solid.
Yeah.
Josh Brolin
I love
is in
Brolin.
it as his U.S. sort of connection counterpart. One of those, shadow ops, dirty pool. You want the job done, don't ask questions. We'll get it done kind of guys. And I thought he was really good in this too.
I liked him. I thought the subplot was kind of useless,
unnecessary.
So I was distracted by it.
So it's basically. I'm remembering back to when I saw this in the theater and looking at the trailer. Del Toro and Brolin are on this job to try to, it's smuggling somebody out of the country, isn't it? Or getting somebody back in.
They have to get this little girl.
Ultimately, they're trying to protect this little girl who's the daughter of the drug kingpin. Maybe they're using her as a. Sit with us, will you, now, while we try to figure out what this movie was about. I think they're smuggling her out to try to
They're using her as bait
to lure
get
out the
them.
big bad guy.
Right.
And so it's one of those protect the asset at any cost gauntlet kind of movies ultimately. And it's just I thought it was really good. And it was grim and it was very tense and it was well shot and I liked it despite how unpleasant it often was.
Well, we separate slightly on this. I liked a good deal of it, but I thought I was expecting a lot more, expecting it to be a lot stronger.
You were expecting it to be a little bit more truth is stranger than fiction-y?
That's possible, and if you're looking for something that is very strange and can you believe it and you can scream and yell at the screen because that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, but it's all true, ladies and gentlemen. A triplet of brothers is separated almost at birth. They have no idea they exist, but through various and quite strikingly hard to believe means, but they say it's all true. They find out that they're all together, even though they've lived apart, as three identical strangers.
Tender, too. So make Sunbeam bread your favorite choice.
And we're back. It's going to be a tough year coming up next year for Best Documentary because this has got to be nominated. RBG, will be nominated and will probably win. It's very good, but for all the political reasons. Won't You Be My Neighbor? It's nominated. I think it should win. Wow, how spectacular that was. This is really amazing, how they lead you along. They do a great job. Even if you know the premise, they do a great job leading you along, showing you how just the unbelievable story unfolds. And in the long run, there's not much to give away, really. It's just
I haven't seen it.
And there's not. I mean, they all find each other, and they were separated at birth for the most part. That's the thing. The real interest is in where they all went and how they got together. And it's not. I mean, there's nothing anything specific to say about it here. I just thought this was terrific. Another great documentary this year.
Now that this is out on video, I just missed this when it was at the Colonial, so I'm really excited to finally catch up with this at home.
Right.
I only have a couple things to watch at home, so it'll be
exactly. I'm sure.
I'm guessing 2023 or thereabouts is when I'll see this. So now we move to my favorite part of the program. It is the Arrow Video Corner, mostly because Tom gets an arrow in the Hawiki, and
got it
right in the Hawiki. He caught it. Like Van Damme in Hard Target, catching it out of thin air, and slapping that snake on the back of the head. So we have a film. This is the first film from director John Landis, who you may know from films such as See You Next Wednesday, Kentucky Fried Movie, Animal House, American Werewolf in London, Innocent Blood, Blues Brothers 2000. Maybe not that one. It is the first film he made, released in 1972, about the killer banana monster, alternate title for a re-release of this film. And if in a word you wanted to sum up the quality and or contents of this film, it would be schlock.
Comes from Mars.
Well, that looks like the way to end the show.
Okay, it's in the series. We're done. Bye. This is a goofy movie. This is a movie I used to read about in the Psychotronic Encyclopedia of Film as a kid.
Okay.
Never could find it. One of the first times I came to Keene with a parent to go shopping when Video Headquarters still existed, and they were over near Riches, which isn't there anymore. They were over where Walmart is now. And I saw the big box Banana Monster VHS on the shelf, and I'm like, it's that movie, and I live an hour away, and I can't rent it. Anyway, this is a very, very silly film. I would put this right alongside Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. If you know about that movie, that's the level of humor this is. It's goofy. It's very episodic. It's basically the Schlockthropus is the name of I think it is, something like that. It's supposed to be the missing link. So, which is actually John Landis, the director, in a gorilla outfit made by Rick Baker. Pretty good one, actually, as far as not looking just like an old cheap Crash Corrigan gorilla suit. And he's just wandering through the California countryside, killing people, throwing little boys into pools. It's very goofy, very slapstick. There's a guy on his trail who's sort of like a cut-rate Woody Allen, and it's ridiculous. So if you like very silly, cheap comedy, this is what that is. There's nothing brilliant. It's very lowbrow and low end. One of the best scenes for me is it takes place in a California movie theater. This was shot in '72. It was produced by Jack Harris, who had done The Blob and Dinosaurus and some other things. Dark Star, too, I think. So you see like posters for The Blob and everything like that. And there's a scene in the movie where it's in the movie theater and they're watching The Blob on the big screen. But most interesting for me is that you see a really nice condition early 70s big single screen movie theater. So you see what the lobby looked like and the concession stand and the indoor, the inside and the earmark of a low budget movie. They're watching a film and it's a fully lit auditorium.
Right,
So they're apparently watching a movie with all the lights up. And Forrest J. Ackerman has a little cameo. So I thought Schlock was fun. I don't know that I would highly recommend it to anybody. If you like John Landis and you've never seen it, it's worthwhile. If you like
language, nudity for kids.
I think this is actually PG. There might be a little profanity, but there's no nudity in it. There's no gore. If there is, it's somebody tearing a mannequin arm off somebody, and it's completely cheap and fake. It is Arrow, so it looks fantastic. Apparently, this had a previous release on DVD from Anchor Bay, so a lot of the extras are carried over from that. You have a commentary with Rick Baker and John Landis, which is pretty amusing, from the Anchor Bay DVD, which they mentioned at the beginning, and a lot of interviews with various aspects of the production crew that were carried over from that. But there's also some new stuff. Then you have radio spots and a bunch of other things. So there's a lot that puts this, as I like to say, sometimes you watch a film that's so weird or bad or whatever, you watch the extras because somebody needs to do some explaining here. Where did this come from and why? So this falls into the good category of this film is explained by these extras, how this came to be and what kind of life it led. It apparently had a few re-releases, mostly because John Landis then made movies that were popular.
Right, so you go back.
It's from the director of Animal House.
It's like Piranha, watching Piranha.
Exactly. So and there's the Banana Monster retitling where they just cut in the words Banana Monster over every time they say Schlock or show it on screen. So instead of Schlock, which takes you that long to say, Banana Monster is a lot more syllables. So it's, see the new film, Banana Monster. It's really funny. Anyway, that is out now from Arrow Vidya, and it's there if you want it.
Marvelous.
So with that, that's everything we
got
had
through
on our
it,
list.
most of it.
Everything except those that we purged.
Yes.
Or left behind.
To which they will remain, fortunately, unaware.
You'll never know. So next week we have
Halloween.
We have a film called Halloween, not to be confused with the film called Halloween or another film called Halloween.
Right.
All about Michael Myers killing people.
Right.
It is the latest. It replaces H2O as the. Remember all those other sequels? We'll forget about that.
I do.
This is the second movie. That's what H2O did 20 years ago, and now we have another movie that says, remember all those other sequels? We'll forget about this. This is the second movie. Jamie Lee Curtis is back as Laurie Strode, and our belief is there was Halloween in 1978, and now there's Halloween in 2018, and that's the entire story. That's what this film is trying to say. I've heard good things overall about it. I'm very curious about this. I don't know that it's necessary, but I might love it, so that's cool. We also have Can You Ever Forgive, which I've never heard of.
Right.
And Mid-90s, which is this movie that's shot by Jonah Hill.
Yeah, it looks strange.
And it may or may not be 4x3, which is kind of odd to me. It's basically about 90s skateboard kids bumming around in California somewhere. So maybe we'll see it if we have a chance. Maybe we will. Until then, you have a dentist appointment to get to. I do. And I'm
not an animal.
No.
I say afterwards.
Yeah. So you should come back and we'll do a show immediately afterwards when you're all doped up.
I've avoided that as much as possible.
It'll be like Leslie Nielsen in that Police Squad episode where he talks and
where
he
he just
spits
drools
and drools all over the place. Until then, I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
the Cinemaniacs.